The air that morning was too still, like the world had taken a breath and forgot how to let it go. Madison Carter stood at the edge of the rooftop garden, her fingers tight around a pair of rusted binoculars. Below, the streets of what was once Portland lay silent, shadowed in long, unmoving stillness. No traffic, no birds, no people. Just the wind scraping against hollow buildings, whispering the same question in her ear. Where did everyone go? It hadn't always been like this. 3 weeks earlier, the world still spun news headlines were full of strange illnesses, but no one believed it would reach them. They all thought it was just another scare. Then the sirens stopped, the broadcasts went silent, and the cities fell. Now, Madison was one of 100 survivors occupying a once-abandoned high school turned into a vertical haven. They called it the Spine, a tower of steel and shattered glass, where every floor told a different story of how the world ended. But what made Madison nervous today wasn't the quiet, it was the gathering. In the cafeteria, they were choosing 10 people. 10 who would leave the Spine to scout the eastern corridor for fuel, medicine, anything they could trade with the next nearest safe zone, 40 miles out. That meant crossing Sector 12, the zone where communications had gone dark months ago. No one who crossed into 12 ever came back. Madison turned away from the window and made her way down the stairwell, passing murals of chalk drawings left by the kids who'd once gone to school here. Now the drawings were faded and dusty, like the laughter that used to echo in these halls. She entered the common room where voices murmured low with tension. Saul, their elected coordinator, stood at the center. A former EMT with sharp eyes and a louder heart. He held a clipboard and a nervous pen. "We don't have the luxury of waiting," Saul said. "If we sit still, we die. I'm not trying to scare anyone, but the ration supply is down to 16 days, and our solar rig's battery stack is cracked. We need fuel. We need antibiotics. And we need eyes on that new signal from Zone 8. A murmur rippled through the group. That signal, a repeating click-beep pattern heard 2 nights ago, might be proof someone else was still out there. Not just the infected. Not just ruins. Madison stepped forward, surprised to hear her voice say, "I'll go." Heads turned. Saul narrowed his gaze but didn't argue. One by one, 9 more stepped forward, some older, some younger, each with their own reason to volunteer. No one did it for glory. Some wanted to find family. Some wanted to forget them. Others just couldn't sit in one place anymore, waiting to rot in safety. By sundown, the 10 had packed light and fast. Canned goods, water tablets, emergency radios. 1 flare each, and silent weapons only. Loud noise attracted the wrong kind of attention. As they left the gates, those staying behind lined the rooftop, waving silently. No one cried. No one shouted encouragement. Words meant little now. Every goodbye could be permanent. The air outside was heavier than they remembered. The temperature didn't match the season. It was like nature itself was caught in limbo. Madison walked beside Victor, a former mechanic with a limp and a sharp mind. They didn't talk much, only nodded when taking turns on watch. They moved through broken streets, past cars left mid-turn, bags dropped in panic, a world caught mid-breath. The first night, they found shelter in an overturned train car near the riverbed. Inside, the rust and mold smelled of history. Madison took first watch, sitting by the jagged doorway with her knife in hand, eyes locked on shadows that never stopped moving. Just before dawn, it happened. A low shuffle. Slow, rhythmic. Then silence. She leaned out, scanning with her flashlight set to red mode. Low visibility, low risk, nothing. Then movement. Not a person. Not quite a walker either. Something hunched, crawling, dragging limbs like they were just learning to use them. She didn't make a sound. Just watched as it disappeared behind a truck. When Victor stirred, Madison told him, "We're not alone. And they're not like the ones before." They pressed forward with caution the next day. Each mile brought new unease. Abandoned military Barricades, messages scrawled in bloodless charcoal on walls. Stay quiet, they hear everything. And then footprints, human, fresh. Someone else was moving to. By the end of the second day, they reached the edge of Sector 12. The world hadn't just stopped turning. Something else had started moving in its place, and the survivors were walking right into its path. The border of Sector 12 wasn't marked by fences or signs. It was marked by silence. Not the peaceful kind, but a heavy, unnatural quiet that pressed down like a weight on the chest. No birds, no bugs, not even wind. It felt like the world held its breath whenever someone crossed into this forgotten place. Victor was the first to step over the cracked highway line. He crouched low, scanned with his binoculars, then gave a sharp nod to the others. Madison followed, her knife in hand, eyes darting from rooftop to shadow. Behind them, the rest of the Team 10 in total moved in single file. No one spoke, no one dared. The buildings here were scorched. Windows blackened. Some walls had collapsed entirely, leaving interiors wide open like gaping wounds. Signs of a battle long over were everywhere: shell casings, scattered uniforms, burned-out vehicles with no explanation. But what chilled them most were the faces drawn in ash on every other wall. Dozens, maybe hundreds, wide eyes, mouths open, like the memory of the people who had died here refused to fade. Why would someone draw these? Whispered Naomi, the youngest of the group. Maybe they didn't, muttered Victor. They didn't stop to explore. By mid-afternoon, the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across broken pavement. That's when they found it. Overturned truck on the edge of a collapsed bridge. Its back was ripped open from the inside. Inside, torn boxes of ration kits, now molded and useless. But near the front seat, Victor found a working GPS unit, old, but usable. Madison held her breath as he powered it up. The screen flickered, then stabilized. A red marker pulsed on the map. Camp Halcyon, 7.2 miles northeast. Madison leaned closer. You ever hear of it? Victor shook his head. But someone wanted people to. Could be a trap, Naomi added. Or it could be supplies, said Leo, the group's navigator and former CARTOGRAPHER. The vote was quick. 8 said yes. 2 stayed silent. Majority ruled. They followed the broken road east, passing shattered storefronts and rusting playgrounds overtaken by vines. Every sound, every scrape of gravel, every snap of twig felt too loud. By the time dusk turned the sky a deep orange, they reached the edge of an industrial park. That's when the smell hit them. It wasn't death, at least not fresh. It was old rot, like wet insulation and mildew mixed with something sweet. They covered their mouths and pressed on, trying to ignore it. A shriek shattered the stillness. Everyone froze. Not a human scream. Not animal either. It came from inside the warehouse ahead, where their path to Camp Halcyon continued. Victor raised his hand. Light discipline, slow. They crept toward the warehouse wall, hugging the edge. Madison peeked through a broken pane. Inside, flickering lantern light revealed something grotesque. 5 figures, barely human, moved like puppets with broken strings. Their skin was loose, their limbs twitching in ways that didn't make sense. They weren't feeding. They weren't even reacting to each other. They just moved erratic, aimless, constantly shifting. Naomi choked down a gasp. What is that? They're infected, said Madison, but not like the others. One of the creatures stopped. Its head snapped sharply, unnaturally toward the window. Madison ducked. It saw me. Move. The group scattered, diving for cover behind cars and rubble. From the warehouse came the sound of crashing wood and clawed feet pounding across concrete. They didn't run far. Just enough to reach a broken drainage pipe leading beneath a collapsed lot. Inside was pitch black, narrow, cold. The infected didn't follow. Victor lit a small red LED, careful not to draw too much attention. His voice was calm but strained. "They're changing. Mutating. We need to find this camp," Madison sighed, catching her breath. "Fast." As they moved deeper into the pipe, they found scrawled writing on the wall in chalk. "Keep going. Halcyon is real. Don't stop." Naomi touched the writing. "Someone left this for us." "No," Victor said, voice low. "They left it for anyone still moving." By midnight, they emerged into a ravine, hidden beneath a collapsed parking garage. A single trail of stones led into the darkness, marked by a makeshift sign made from a license plate and wire. "Gives HLCYO," and no one said a word. They followed Dot back in Sector 12. The warehouse stood empty again, but the creatures weren't gone. They were listening, and now they knew someone was near. The path to Halcyon wasn't a road, it was a scar. Twisted metal jutted from the earth like broken bones, and the trees, where there were any, leaned away from the trail as if recoiling from whatever had come through before. The survivors moved quietly, following the stacked stones that marked the way, each pile shaped deliberately, almost lovingly. Someone had gone to great effort to leave a trail. Victor kept his hand on his weapon, his eyes sweeping every corner of the terrain. Madison walked behind him, whispering to Naomi, "Someone's watching this trail. Has to be. These signs are too fresh." Naomi nodded, clinging to her pack. "Do you think they're friendly?" "I think they're smart," Madison answered. "And right now, that might be more dangerous." The trail twisted into a narrow gorge, choked by thick vines and roots that had broken through the pavement. The group moved single file, stepping over fallen debris and ducking under low-hanging tree limbs. Leo paused to study the map on the GPS. "We're close," he whispered. "Maybe 2 miles, maybe less." That's when they saw it. A backpack. Torn, abandoned, covered in dried mud and dust, but not old. Madison crouched beside it, slowly unzipping the largest pouch. Inside, a flare, a cracked radio, and a journal with half the pages soaked from rain. Victor crouched beside her as she flipped through the dry ones. Scrawled handwriting filled each page, uneven and frantic. "Made it out of Sector 12. Lost 3. Still hear the whispers at night. They mimic voices. Don't answer. Don't trust the light." Madison closed the book and stood. Whoever left this behind wasn't far ahead of us. And they were hearing things. The wind picked up, brushing leaves down the canyon like whispers. A rustling above drew all eyes upward. Something was moving, not a bird, not a branch. Something big. "Move," Victor hissed. "Now!" The group pushed forward, quickening their pace, hearts pounding. The stones led them to the edge of a dried-out riverbed. At the center, nestled between fallen trees and moss-covered ruins, was a rusted gate. Above it, a faded sign swayed in the breeze. "Camp Halcyon. Entry with caution. Stay inside." After Dr. Madison studied the gate. No locks, no guards, just a silent promise of safety or a well-laid trap. They entered slowly. Halcyon wasn't what they expected. Not a military camp. Not even a large base. It was a collection of shipping containers turned into shelters, surrounded by half-buried buses and makeshift walls made from tires and sandbags. Solar panels glinted in the distance. There were signs of life, but no people. Fires long since burned out. Clothes hung but never retrieved. A garden overtaken by weeds. Victor raised his voice just above a whisper. "Hello? Anyone here?" Silence, then a single chime. A wind bell. From one of the container doors, a voice called out, hoarse but steady. "You shouldn't have come here." The group froze. Madison stepped forward. "We're not infected. We came from the spine. We saw your signal." The door creaked open. An older man stepped out, wrapped in a ragged coat, with deep lines etched into his face. His eyes flicked over them, cautious but not cruel. "You saw the signal?" he asked. Victor nodded. 2 nights ago, repeating click-beep pattern. We thought it was a call for help. The man chuckled, bitter. It was a warning. He gestured for them to follow him into the shelter. Inside, old maps covered the walls, littered with pins and scribbled notes. Name's Elias. I was part of the original Halcyon team. We built this place to outlast the fall. It worked, for a while. Madison leaned over the table. What happened? They changed, Elias said. The infected. Something made them evolve. No longer just shambling corpses. They learn. They mimic. They set traps. Naomi stepped back, horrified. You mean they're intelligent? Not like us, Elias said. But smart enough to use our own curiosity against us. He tapped one of the maps. They've overrun Sector 12. But they don't cross into Halcyon unless they want to. We used to think we were safe. Then they stopped attacking. They started watching. Outside, the wind shifted. Something clinked in the distance. Elias stood. You led them here, didn't you? Madison's breath caught. We were quiet, careful. Elias moved to the window and pulled back a tarp. Down the ridge, at the edge of the trees, dozens of shadows stood completely still, unmoving, waiting. Victor whispered. How long have they been out there? Elias's voice was grim. Since before the sun went down. The infected didn't charge. They didn't growl or moan. They just stood there, in complete silence, lined across the trees like statues beneath the moonlight. Even in the dim glow, their outlines were wrong. Some were too tall. Others hunched. Unnaturally. One of them swayed slightly, like a pendulum, never breaking eye contact with the camp. They're waiting, Elias muttered from behind the tarp. That's the worst part. They know we're here. But they're patient now. Victor leaned closer to the makeshift window. They've never acted like this before. We've dealt with runners, biters. But these things, they're not just infected anymore, Elias said grimly. They've become something else. Inside the container shelter, the air felt too close. Everyone stood frozen, uncertain whether they should speak or move. Madison's hand rested on her knife. Handle, more for comfort than for use. She glanced at Elias. Why don't they come in? If they know we're here, they don't need to, Elias replied. They've learned that people panic. People make mistakes. All they have to do is wait until someone opens the gate. Naomi stepped back from the window, her voice shaking. We didn't come all this way just to sit in another prison. You came here thinking there was a plan, Elias said. But Halcyon's dead. I'm the only one left, Victor frowned. What about the signal? You sent it. Elias hesitated. Yes, but I didn't send it to call for help. I sent it to warn the others not to follow the same path. Halcyon held for 2 months. Then, they changed. He moved to a chest in the corner of the shelter and opened it. Inside, a dusty case held a compact drive recorder. This has the last week of Halcyon surveillance footage. If you don't believe me, watch it. Madison took the drive carefully. We'll review it. But we need to know what's there. Go, why wait? Why watch? Elias leaned on the wall, exhausted. I think they're evolving. Not just physically, tactically. I've seen them mimic our routines. Wait for someone to come out alone. Set bait. The infected aren't individuals anymore. They're a system. Naomi's eyes widened. A hive? Maybe, Elias replied. Maybe worse, because we can't hear their signals. We can't break their code. A loud clang shattered the tense quiet. Everyone spun around. Outside, something had struck the outer metal gate of Halcyon. Victor raised his voice. Was that one of them? Elias rushed to a control panel and flipped on an old black and white monitor linked to a security cam. The grainy footage showed nothing, just trees, wind, and the front gate. Then another clang. Louder dot from the shadows. A shape darted into frame. Not charging, not screaming. Just tapping the gate with a stick, deliberately. Tap, tap, tap. Then It backed away. That's not random, Madison whispered. It's not, Elias confirmed. They've been doing that for 3 nights now. Never the same time. Always just one. Always tapping. They want to see how we react, Victor murmured. We're being studied, Madison said flatly. Elias looked at her. Now you get it. Another sound interrupted them, a beep from the GPS unit Leo had left charging. He picked it up and frowned. We've got movement. 2 signals, human maybe. Less than a mile north. Everyone gathered around. 2 blinking dots moved slowly toward the camp. Could be survivors, Naomi said. Or bait, Victor countered. Elias rubbed his face. You'll have to decide fast. They'll reach the camp in 15 minutes. Madison looked out at the forest again. The infected hadn't moved, but she could feel it in her chest. They were aware. They were part of this. We go in pairs. She said, Victor and I will check the North Pass. The rest stay here with Elias. If it's a trap, we fall back. Elias handed them a flare. If things go bad, don't waste time shouting. Just light this, bright green, I'll see it. Victor. And Madison moved swiftly, sticking to shadows as they left the camp perimeter through a hidden side path Elias had shown them. The night was eerily still, no bugs, no crunch of leaves underfoot, just their breathing and the occasional creak of the forest. Settling. Then, they saw them. 2 figures stumbling through the fog. Wait, Madison whispered. That walk too. Stiff. Victor lifted the red flashlight, aimed it low, and flicked it on briefly. The beam passed over 2 mannequins, dressed in tattered human clothes, dragged forward by thin wires barely visible in the moonlight. Victor cursed. It's a setup. Too late. From the left, a figure lunged out of the trees, its mouth closed, its eyes dead, its hands reaching not to grab but to pull something. A wire, behind them. The forest came alive with motion. They've boxed us. In, Madison gasped. Victor lit the flare. The green light shot skyward. In the distance, Halcyon's gate creaked, and the infected finally started to move. The green flare lit the sky like a false dawn, casting sharp shadows across the broken treetops. At its peak, the light hung there silent, urgent, desperate. Elias saw it from the camp's northern lookout and didn't hesitate. Lock the lower gates. He shouted, everyone to fallback stations. Naomi's heart raced as she helped Elias pull heavy crates in front of the primary entrance. Leo, barely able to keep calm, checked the solar-powered floodlights. They flickered twice, then held. Steady, will they see that flare too? Naomi asked. Elias didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was hollow. They already have. In the woods, Victor and Madison ran low to the ground, dodging tree roots and ducking under branches as the forest around them erupted with movement. The infected didn't howl or scream like the early outbreaks. These ones were organized, spreading out, flanking them. It was like they were hunting, not chasing. They're not trying to catch us, Victor shouted. They're trying to turn us around, push us back to the camp. Madison's mind worked furiously as they reached a ridge. She could see the shimmer of Halcyon's perimeter lights in the distance. Too far, too open. If they sprinted straight, they'd be cut down. Take the service tunnel, she yelled. Elias said it ran under the garden beds. They veered right, sliding down the ridge, crashing through brambles and brush. Madison's arm was bleeding, thorns tearing at her sleeves, but she didn't stop. They reached a rusted grate half buried beneath vines. Together, they heaved it open and dropped inside. Darkness swallowed them. The tunnel stank of mildew and rot. A trickle of foul water ran down the center. But it was narrow and defensible. For now, they ran. Back in Halcyon, Elias opened the rear hatch to retrieve his old sidearm. It had seen more years than he could count, but it still worked. He checked the magazine. 6 shots. That would have to do. Naomi stood at the gate, hands trembling as she tightened the locking bolts. They're coming. We all saw them, Leo's voice cracked. So what do we do when they get here? Fight? No, Elias said, stepping up beside them. We stall, Naomi frowned. What? We stall long enough to get Madison and Victor inside. We stall long enough to find another way out. You think there is one? I think if we sit here debating, it won't matter. Madison and Victor emerged into Halcyon's garden beds, panting, clothes soaked. The night air was filled with a strange electric hum like a warning building in the earth itself. As they scrambled out of the tunnel, they saw them, shapes moving between the trees. Silent, intentional. Victor fired once not to hit, but to distract. The infected didn't flinch. They simply stepped back into the shadows, vanishing. They're surrounding the whole camp, Victor said, grabbing Madison's arm. They're not rushing in. They're starving us out. They ran to the main compound where Elias, Naomi, and Leo were waiting. Elias shut the door behind them. We've got one chance, he said. There's a maintenance tunnel old mine shaft under the North Ridge. Caved in years ago, but part of it might still be usable. How do we get there? Victor asked. That's the problem, Elias replied. It's outside the walls. Madison looked around the group. We'll need a distraction. Something to draw them to the south side while we move north. Leo spoke up. I can rig the floodlights to surge. Blow the capacitor. It'll cause a flare so bright they'll think we're signaling again. Won't that kill the power? Naomi asked. Yes, Leo said. All of it. Doors, radios, lights. Once I trigger it, we go blind. Madison nodded. Then we make it count. They moved fast. Naomi gathered supplies. Victor mapped the route. Elias handed everyone old halcyon masks worn during the early outbreak to hide scent. Maybe it wouldn't fool the infected now, but maybe it would buy seconds. Leo crouched at the power hub, sweating. On your mark, we've got 15 seconds. Of chaos. Do it, Madison said. He triggered the surge. The sky lit like lightning. Every infected for a half-mile turned their heads. Dozens of them, drawn to the pulsing wave of light. As planned, the group sprinted toward the North Ridge, but something unexpected happened. They weren't alone. From the other side of the trees, new figures moved. Not infected. Not part of Halcyon. Another group. Armed. Silent. Watching from the shadows. Naomi gasped. Who are they? Elias's face went pale. That's not part of Halcyon protocol. Then a voice rang out, sharp and clear. Drop your weapons. You're not supposed to be here. Drop your weapons, now. The voice came from the shadows, calm, confident, and cold. Madison froze mid-step, her boots crunching faintly on gravel as floodlight residue flickered out behind them. Total darkness returned, broken only by the faint glimmer of stars. Victor's hand hovered near his holster. We don't want trouble. You already brought it, the voice snapped. Then, from the trees, figures emerged. 6 of them. Human. Or at least they looked human. Camouflage clothing, face masks, old tactical gear scavenged from multiple factions. Their weapons weren't military issued, they were modified, silent, deadly. Who are you? Elias asked carefully, raising his hands. A woman stepped forward. Her voice matched the first, sharp but restrained. We're the ones Halcyon left behind. The ones who stayed hidden when the rest of the world gave up. Elias stared. You're part of the second wave? The woman pulled down her mask. Her face was marked with a burn scar that reached from her cheek to her jaw. Her eyes, however, were clear and hard. Name's Riley. I led the Eastern Watch of Halcyon before the order came to evacuate, but not all of us left. You stayed, Madison said. We adapted. Riley corrected. Naomi stepped forward. We thought everyone here was dead. Riley gave a humorless smile. Dead? Not quite. This place still breathes, just deeper underground. Victor raised an eyebrow. Then why pull weapons on us? We came here to find help, supplies, Answers. You lit the sky, Riley said. You brought them here. Now you've got the eyes of a hive watching your every step. We've kept Halcyon off their radar for weeks. Until tonight, Leo frowned. We didn't know. You should have, she said sharply. If you're still alive now, you should have known not to make noise. Madison stepped between them. Look, we didn't come here to ruin your setup, but we do need to get out. There's over 90 people still alive at the spine, and we're running out of time. Riley looked at her a long moment. The spine, I've heard the rumors. A vertical colony? Still standing, Madison confirmed. Barely, Elias cleared his throat. If you're part of what's left of Halcyon, then you know there's a maintenance shaft under the North Ridge. Can we still get through it? Riley hesitated. Depends. It was collapsed months ago, but we've cleared part of it. Problem is our tunnels aren't safe anymore. Something found us down there last week. Took one of ours without making a sound. Victor asked. Not infected? Riley's eyes darkened. Worse, something smarter. An uneasy silence fell. Then Riley pointed her rifle north. Come. With us, but no noise. No lights, and don't stray from the group. We've learned to survive in silence. It's the only reason we're still breathing. They followed the masked survivors through the forest, keeping low and close. Not a single word was spoken. Even Naomi didn't ask questions. Everyone felt the weight of unseen eyes pressing in from all sides. Eventually, they reached a rocky outcrop covered in moss and vines. One of Riley's crew knelt and pulled away a camouflage net, revealing a narrow tunnel entrance, reinforced with scavenged metal panels and rusted rails. Down here, Riley whispered. The old tramway. Stay sharp. Inside, the air changed. It was colder, wetter. The walls dripped with condensation. Water pooled at their feet as they descended. The tunnel stretched for hundreds of yards, lit only by faint glow markers the underground survivors had placed along the walls. Victor whispered, Feels like the bones of the earth. Madison replied, just as softly, or its throat. They continued in silence until Riley held up her hand. Everyone stopped. Ahead, the tunnel widened into an old depot platform. Faded signage read, Halcyon North Transfer Point. But the platform wasn't empty. A figure stood at the far end. UNMOVING. Not one of Riley's crew. Not infected, at least not visibly. He wore a scavenged raincoat, his head tilted slightly. Riley signaled for her sniper to aim. He's not one of ours. Madison stepped forward. Wait. The figure didn't move. Didn't blink. Then. It spoke. You're not supposed to be here, it said, mimicking Riley's voice perfectly. Everyone froze. Victor whispered, Is that a recording? No, Riley said grimly. It's one of them. The figure suddenly twisted, moving. Faster than anything should in that tight space, retreating into the dark tunnel beyond. No growl. No attack, just gone. Riley lowered her weapon. They're probing. They want us scared, Naomi whispered. It's working. They pushed on faster until they reached the end of the tunnel where Riley pointed to a sealed hatch. This leads out to the other side of the valley, she said. Once you're through, it's 10 miles to the relay station. You make it there, you can call your people. If you still trust anyone to answer. Madison looked at the hatch. Behind it was freedom, but behind them, something had learned their names. The hatch groaned open like a wounded beast, spilling cool, damp air into the tunnel. Beyond it lay a valley cloaked in mist, thick trees standing like watchful sentries on either side. Riley's team held the perimeter, weapons up, eyes sharp. No. Lights, she whispered. Move fast, keep low. Madison, Victor, Naomi, Elias, and Leo stepped through the threshold like it was a doorway to another world. Behind them, Riley stayed at the hatch, her expression unreadable. You're not coming? Madison asked. This tunnel is our last line of defense, Riley said. If it's breached, Halcyon is gone for good. We hold the line. You keep moving. You've got people to save. Madison nodded. The unspoken weight between them understood. They were all survivors, but some had chosen different. Battlegrounds. Then the hatch slammed shut. The sound echoed through the valley like thunder. For a moment, no one moved. They were alone again. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was listening. Victor led them through the tree line. The GPS, clutched in his hand, screen dimmed but functional. Relay stations northeast, 10 miles, just like she said. Through the brush, then across that old railway bridge. Leo added, that bridge is probably unstable. If it's even standing, Naomi shivered. They're not chasing us anymore. They don't need to, Elias muttered. They're tracking us. Then why aren't they attacking? Naomi asked. Victor answered flatly. Because they've already started the next phase. They walked for 2 hours without rest. Every so often, Madison would pause and glance behind them. No infected, no movement, but always that sensation of being observed. The kind of feeling that dug between your ribs and stayed there. They reached the railway by dawn. The bridge was still there, but barely. Twisted metal sagged in places, with large sections of wood rotten or missing entirely. A single track stretched across the valley like a scar. Beneath it, fog rolled over a dried-out riverbed full of debris and rusted wreckage. We cross one at a time, Victor said. Fast, quiet. If it starts to go, jump. Leo went first. Step by careful step, he crossed the trembling wood, arms out like a tightrope walker. When he reached the other side, he turned and waved. Naomi followed. Then Elias, then Madison. Victor was last. Halfway across, he heard it, a creak too deep, like something shifting beneath the bridge, something alive. He picked up speed. Then came the sound. A single deliberate knock. He stopped, turned. No one behind him, but underneath. Movement. Suddenly, a hand shot through a gap in the bridge planks, gray, veined and clawed. Victor screamed, nearly losing his balance. Madison grabbed his arm and yanked him the rest of the way, just as another hand reached up from beneath. More arms followed. Dozens. They weren't alone anymore. The group sprinted into the woods on the other side, not stopping until they reached the remains of an old observation station. Metal walls, half collapsed, surrounded by broken tech and shattered radio dishes. Leo stumbled inside and immediately began searching the remains. There has to be something, antenna, backup transmitter, anything. Naomi stood at the doorway, panting, eyes darting between the trees. They're not following us. That's what scares me, Madison said. Elias walked to a dusty control board and yanked off a tarp. This is it. Relay panels intact, but power's gone. Victor held up a small solar pack. Think this'll juice it? Long enough to send a ping. They connected the battery and waited. The lights blinked once, twice, then a slow, steady green glow. Leo adjusted the mic. Sending emergency signal now, broad spectrum. Repeat it, Madison said. 5 times. He nodded. The signal broadcast began a short pulse, followed by coordinates and a call code from the spine. The room filled with faint static. Then, a reply. A voice, broken but audible. Repeat, identify, confirm location. Naomi's hands flew to her mouth. It worked. Victor leaned in. This is Unit Echo from the spine. We're alive. Request immediate response. Over. The reply came back, stronger. Copy that, Echo. We're receiving. We see your signal. Relief swept through the group. For the first time in days, there was hope. But just as Elias reached for the panel to stabilize the broadcast, all the lights went dead. Static cut off. A moment of silence. Then, a new voice came through. Not human. Not alive. A perfect imitation of Victor's voice. We see you. The radio exploded in a burst of sparks. Everyone jumped back. Leo stared at the burned-out board. That wasn't our people. No, Madison whispered. That was them. Elias picked up his pack, face pale. They don't just mimic voices anymore. They hijacked the signal, Victor said. Naomi's eyes welled with fear. They heard everything. They know where the spine is now. The forest around them began to whisper. The wind shifted. The hunt had begun again. Part 8 title. The last move belongs to the living. Would you like me to write the final part, Part 8? The radio lay in pieces, smoke curling from its cracked shell. The last words still echoed in Madison's mind. We see you. Not a threat, a confirmation. A message that the game had changed. Victor backed away from the ruined equipment, his voice low. They used our signal like bait. They know the spine is out there now, Elias said. And they're not going to wait this time. They're coming. Outside, the air had changed. The wind that once moved randomly now shifted like breath through a tunnel, smooth, measured, and intentional. The infected weren't chasing anymore. They were hunting strategically. Leo frantically dug through the remains of the old outpost, tossing aside burned radios and shattered screens. There has to be another transmitter. Something analog. Something they can't mimic. Even if there is, Naomi said, trembling, they're closing in. We won't make it back in time. We led them right to the spine. No, Madison said, stepping forward. We buy time. We don't outrun them. We outsmart them. Victor looked at her. We're 5 people, and they're a hive, she answered. But they think we'll run. We don't. We split. One team heads west, lays a trail. The other goes back, gets the spine evacuated before it's too late. Elias frowned. It'll take hours, maybe days. They'll reach the city in half that time. Not if we give them something else to chase, Madison said. Silence fell. Leo stood. I'll go west. I can reroute one of the old signal drones. If I boost it with a solar pack, they'll follow it like it's a beacon. I'll go too, Naomi said softly. I'm done hiding. Victor looked between them, then nodded. Elias and I can get back to the spine. We know the terrain. Madison placed a hand on his arm. No, I'm going with you. Victor hesitated, but didn't argue. The moment called for action, not debate. They moved fast. The group split near the edge of the valley. Naomi and Leo climbed toward an overlook with the drone they salvaged. Madison, Victor, and Elias pushed into the lower forest, retracing the path they'd come, hoping the infected would chase the light instead of the truth. As the sun climbed, the trees lit with golden light, but the shadows stayed just as dark. Every step felt borrowed, every sound possibly the last. But they moved with purpose. By nightfall, they were just 3 miles from the spine. They rested under the shell of a crumbling gas station. Elias checked the sky through the broken roof, spotting the faint shimmer of the drone's path far to the west. It glowed faint green like a firefly in a battlefield. They're following it, he said. For now. Victor leaned back. We need a plan when we get there. We can't fight them. We don't have to, Madison said. We just have to outlast them. The next day, the spine came into view. The tower of steel glass and desperate hope still stood tall barely. Solar panels flickered, smoke curled from small cookfires. Children sat on the rooftop, drawing with chalk. They didn't know. As they reached the gates, alarms sounded. Guards raised weapons, but then gasped as they recognized the survivors. They're back. Inside, Saul met them with wide eyes and a tighter jaw. Where are the others? Buying us time, Madison said. But it won't last. They're coming, all of them. The room fell silent. Victor stepped forward. We need to evacuate, now, everyone. Anything that can move on wheels or tracks or legs. Saul swallowed hard. Where? The mines. Elias said, the lower sectors. We clear them, seal the top. If we hide long enough, The infected won't find anything. But what if they do? Saul asked. Then we fight from a place of strength, Madison said. Not desperation. For the next 12 hours, the spine moved like a hive of its own. Bags packed, supplies split. Children carried maps instead of toys. Older survivors led the way into the tunnels. No one panicked. They were too focused on. Living. Madison stood on the roof one last time before she descended. Far in the distance, the horizon shimmered, not with heat, with motion. Thousands of them, not running. Not stumbling, marching. Victor joined her. They don't stop. No, she said, but neither do we. They descended together, sealing the hatch behind them. The last door clicked shut. The lights dimmed. And the spine, for the first time, went completely silent. Waiting. Breathing. Ready. Because the world had stopped turning, but the survivors had not. And the last move belonged to the living.